When it comes to the world of personal development and getting started on a personal development journey, drifting is one of the biggest things that we talk about because so many people are a victim of going into drift mode. And the reason that it's such a problem isn't because drifting itself is some big hazard that we're running into all of the time. The problem is that drifting feels so comfortable. And I think that's one of the biggest things that makes it dangerous. And it's why it's something that we should avoid as much as humanly possible. Because all of us have potential to do something maybe not life-changing, but we can all do something great that makes us feel like we're fulfilling some kind of purpose. We're contributing some form of value to the world, or at least to our own experience. And when we're drifting, we lose the capability of doing that. In this video, I'm going to give you guys 5 different signs that show that you're probably drifting right now. And a lot of us fall for it. So this is one of those things where take note, ask yourself some good questions and see, is this me and what can I do about it? So a quick personal story about drifting. This is the first time I ever ran into it, or at least came to terms that I'm probably drifting. I got a job at my college and I loved my college. I really enjoyed my college experience and I wanted nothing more than to just give back and find some way to help out my college. And there was a position available that I applied for because it just seemed to fall within my skill set, and I really thought oh wow, this is something that I could do to help the college, to actually make some kind of significant contribution to a place that meant a lot to me. Now, somebody else got the job, unfortunately for me, but they seemed to like me and my spirit, and they said that another job also opened up and maybe I could give that a shot instead and work my way to a different position. However, this other role, it didn't fall within my typical skill set. And it wasn't part of my passion, but I figured, you know what, as long as I can help my college, I'll give it a shot. And unfortunately, what happened was I kept up, kind of, but I wasn't building towards something that really meant anything to me. There were 2 moments that really stand out to me about working at my college. One of them is at some point, I was working on an art project, not for my college, this was on my own time. And I used my lunch break to go and talk to an art professor about what I was doing. And it was so exciting to talk about. I was passionate about this project. I felt so much energy towards it. I felt alive. And my hour lunch break was turned into 2 hours, and I found it really hard to pull myself away from that conversation and go back to work. I didn't care that I was gonna end up being late because what I was doing, that talk that I was having, was so much more energizing. The other moment that was very impactful is when I ultimately got fired from that job because I wasn't performing very well. There was no surprise there. I mean, I know I could have done better, but there's only so much work that I personally could do where I just didn't feel any value in it. They didn't need me for that job. They needed someone to just pretty much hit the checklist. And I knew I was capable of more, but not in that role. And that really wore on me. So getting fired, yeah, I mean, it hurt for sure. Because my original intention was I wanted to help a place that I loved. But the truth is, in that role, I wasn't connected to anything real. I was completing tasks, and you know what? You guessed it, I was drifting. The sad reality is a lot of people, when they're drifting, their life doesn't seem terrible. People usually don't hit rock bottom when they're drifting. A lot of times the signs are quiet. You're functioning, you're doing what you've always done, but you're not questioning any of it. Sign number 1 is that you're not questioning why anymore. You stopped reflecting. You stopped reassessing what you're doing with your life or where you're going. You haven't asked, why am I still doing this? Is what I'm doing taking me where I want to go? When you lose the inquisitive spirit, it's a big sign that you're drifting through life. And what it comes down to is you're not failing, you're not doing terribly, but you're not really choosing what you do either. And that's kind of what drifting is in disguise. There's a book, The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy, that kind of touches on this subject. Ivan always followed the rules. He built a respectable life. He did everything that was asked of him. But on his deathbed, he asked himself, what if my whole life had been wrong? And unfortunately, he only questioned this at the very end. And by then, it was too late to do anything about it. And this is one of those things where the number 1 top deathbed regrets end up being something along the lines of, I didn't live true to my purpose. I didn't spend enough time with the people or with the things that truly mattered to me. I was just doing what was expected of me. And this is why it's so important to start to think about these things, because we don't want to get that far down the road before we recognize that we're not living a purposeful life. Because you can be comfortable enough where you go all the way to that point and you never really realize that this is a problem. So one of the things that we can do to combat this idea of drifting is to consistently reignite curiosity about what you're doing in your life. This doesn't mean you have to question everything and always doubt yourself. That's not the point that I'm trying to drive home right now. But every now and then, checking in, am I doing what I want to do? Am I living a life that's meaningful to me? Am I finding purpose? That is one of the big ways to stop drifting. Next, have you ever woke up and thought, oh wow, it's already insert time period here. If you're living in a way where you're consistently losing track of time, you could be drifting. Now listen, as we get older, time always seems like it's going way faster than it used to. That's just part of life. That's part of growing up. But oftentimes, we tend to lose track of the time that passes, and it's almost as if while we're letting the time pass, we're also waiting for life to come to us. We're not seeking opportunities. The days blend, we delay our decisions, we don't really act upon the world. We wait for the world to come to us, to offer that new opportunity. We want the job promotion, but we wait for it. We work just like we normally work, day after day, month after month, waiting for that time where we're called into the office to say, hey, you got it, bud. And our life ends up becoming, once this season passes, once things calm down, when this happens, when that happens, then I'll really start living. But the time's gonna keep passing. And unfortunately, life is gonna forget about you. And this isn't about being lazy, you're just waiting. You're waiting too much. But waiting doesn't lead to change. You do. And speaking of waiting, there's another literary analogy here. The play, Waiting for Godot, essentially explores this entire idea. Throughout the entire play, the lead characters, Vladimir and Estragon, are waiting. They're standing around and they're waiting for someone to arrive. They don't move, they don't act. What they've done is they've handed off their agency to something or someone outside of themselves. And respectively, time becomes meaningless. And this is really what tends to happen when you're drifting through life, is your agency disappears. Your time slips by unnoticed. And we keep waking up saying, oh my God, is it already this time? I don't want to be too vague in my action steps, but this one I think is really, it's vague. You should always be working towards something, meaning you take agency of something that you're trying to accomplish and you work towards it. Don't keep trying to get through the day, get through the month, get through the year while planning or hoping that something big happens. We have to do everything that we can do to make something happen. And that's gonna go into our next section. Sometimes you're doing a whole lot and it still doesn't challenge you. Sign number 3 is that you're mistaking motion for growth and you lack that challenge in your life. Sometimes we're really productive and it's all within our comfort zone. Sometimes we get a lot done and we don't have anything to show for it. We didn't partake in the process of growing. And this is what I was talking about when sometimes we try to do things to feel alive. Sometimes we should be seeking challenges to push ourselves to be a little bit better than we were before. And even though we're doing things, it's easy to think that we're progressing when really we're just walking in circles. I have a favorite quote from Jim Rohn where he says, don't just get through the day, get from the day. Life isn't about finishing the day with no friction. It's about pulling value from the days that we have. It's about making sure that the friction that we run into is meaningful, because the time is gonna pass no matter what. And I think it's up to us to make sure that with all that time that's passing, we get everything out of it that we absolutely can. And if we're consistently doing things that we're already able to do, that lack of growth, once again, will manifest itself near the end of our life and us questioning, was this worth it? And that seeking of growth, I mean, this is something that's very important for a lot of people. There's an entire science surrounded by it. One of the people in the psychology field, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, one of the hardest to pronounce names out there, he did a ton of work on the idea of flow. Now, most of flow is talking about like getting into the zone and like accomplishing a whole bunch of stuff. But there's another thing that I think is very relevant here, and that's that we grow the most when we seek out challenges that are just outside our current ability. We're not overwhelming ourselves, and it's not easy, but it's uncomfortable enough to force us to grow. So try to always ask yourself, based on where I am right now, what can I do to encourage myself? What goal can I set to force myself to grow a little bit, where at the end of reaching this goal, I know that I became a different person to reach this goal. Because as you hear all the time, if you're not growing, you die. Did you know that a 7-year-old on the playground could give you some of the best advice you'll ever hear in your life? Mind your own business. And this isn't about being nosy, it's about being distracted. Sign number 4 is that you're over-consuming. You've lost connection to your own vision. Maybe you're reading, watching, listening, you're learning. That doesn't seem like it's bad. Sometimes you can even feel inspired, yay rah rah. But the question is this about what someone else is doing or about what you are doing? You might know what everybody else wants, what everybody else is working for, what everybody else accomplished. But what about you? Again, personal story, I do this a lot. I get really motivated and inspired by the things that other people are doing. I want to know their story. I want to know their successes. I even want to know how they did that kind of success. But if I'm not taking the lessons that they're giving me, talking about their journey, and then applying it to my own so that I personally can develop, then again, I'm just spinning the wheels. I follow a lot of people doing incredible things. I admire their creativity, their ambition. I almost see myself in what they've done. And it feels like I'm ready to get somewhere. But then I catch myself. I'm not building anything. I'm absorbing their mission rather than advancing mine. And this is what I think a lot of us fall victim to, where we end up not really living someone else's life, but trying to take their dreams and imagine them as our own, where we can't be imagining a dream. We have to be living out our own. So what can we do about this? The biggest thing is start your day in your own voice. Talk about what you want. Remind yourself about your goals. You can always get inspiration from someone else, but always tie it back into the things that you need to get out of their message and put that into action for the things that you are trying to accomplish in your life. Because, really, the good advice isn't about unplugging. It's just about reconnecting with yourself. And this part takes us to the last one, and this is probably one of the scariest ones. What if your life isn't really your life at all? Sign number 5 that you're drifting is that you're living someone else's life, or a life that somebody else expects of you. Maybe you chose a career to please your parents. Maybe you gave up your dreams because it was the right thing to do based on someone else's opinion. Maybe you tolerate toxic family members because family sticks together. And now you're really not living a life, you're playing a role, and it's one that was assigned to you. One of my favorite authors, Haruki Murakami, wrote a book, Norwegian Wood. And in Norwegian Wood, Toru, the main character, wants to be there for everyone. He wants to be, what they need. But in the process, he himself, slowly fades away. His own desires go quiet. His identity blurs. He dissolves. He disappears. And that's what happens when you live somebody else's life. You don't realize that you're losing yourself until there's almost nothing left. Once again, this can go all the way down the line where you're asking yourself, whose life did you live? What did you live life for? Fulfilling the expectations of other people? That's one of the big deathbed regrets. And I see this all the time. Teenagers starting to look at careers that they don't care about, but their parents are telling them to go after it. Adults who found themselves in careers that they hate because somebody told them that they had to do that. A lot of adults right now have a ton of student loan debt because they went to college because somebody else told them to, when it really had nothing to do with what they wanted to accomplish in their life. There's a very, very big problem with trying to live a life for other people, with trying to live a life that is expected of you rather than one that you're generating on your own. And a huge sign that you're drifting is recognizing that you are not living a life that you are designing. It's good to get the input of other people. Sometimes that's necessary. It's great to get guidance. But at the end of the day, you have a responsibility to live your own life. You have to chase your own dreams. You have to get rid of the guilt of the immigrant parent that gave everything up so that you could have what you have. If you're not passionate about the life that they want of you, you can't live that life. Or you're going to go through a big portion of your life regretting it or resenting it. Do what's true, not what's expected. And one of the big things to say here is, a lot of people will expect a lot of things from you. And sometimes you have to say no. Sometimes you have to go in a different direction. And this isn't you abandoning them. This is just you starting the process of not abandoning yourself. Guys, we get off track all the time. It happens. But the big thing is, this happens slowly. This happens quietly. And we have to do what we can do to pay attention and recognize it as soon as it happens. So if you're listening to this, you're not gone. You're waking up. So here's the next move. Pick one of these signs that really seem to hit you the most and rewatch that section and really dig down and try to see what are you going to do to make sure that this drifting doesn't happen to you. What are you going to do to see that in the future you haven't already drifted so far? Because the farther away you drift, the harder you have to work to come back. Sit with these ideas, journal about them. Take a small uncomfortable action today that puts you on the path that's your path, that you've designed for yourself and your future. If you want more content like this, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.